Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey Dale, what's that map you got over your shoulder there?
This is a map. Now, Mike is going to be going down to Napa next week and going to be gone for about a
Yeah,
week.
thanks for telling everybody,
But your wife is going to be home.
where my whereabouts are going to be.
Yes, he's going down to about this area. This is the Bay
Nice.
Area of California, and this is a map of sales tax in that area. So if you like that idea, the lighter colors are higher sales taxes with obviously the big red center, you know where that is. And the dark areas, the white area is the coast, in case you didn't recognize that. See the little whales there in different colors? And then as you go further north, the darker area is the area where there's the lower and lower and lower sales tax until you get into Oregon. And oh, it used to have no sales tax. Whoops. Now it's suggested that perhaps there should be a sales tax. So here we go. Here's a predictor of the future.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep, you'll get a choice. People who live in Grants Pass, that includes me, a choice. So at least we're trying to make sure that you have some idea of what's going on. So what's the sales tax in Napa these days on items? What's the percentage?
I don't know exactly. Since the time that I left there, it has gone up and down a number of times. Actually, I know that it's gone up. I don't know that it's gone down. They added, flood control assessments to that amount of money. And, a number of other things have been thrown on to we're going to add a 0.5% or 1% or 2% for one particular thing or the other over the years. And when I left there, it was, probably 9.5%. And I'm sure it's well over 10 at this point.
Yep, that's the highest number on here is 10%. Mm-hmm. All right, we want to also give you, because of the kind of show we are, we're going to give you a heads up about the things that are happening, that are coming up in politics here locally. One is tomorrow's weekly business session for the Board of County Commissioners will be at 5:30 every month. On one of the Wednesdays, they hold it at 5:30, and that's tomorrow. There are some interesting things, but the real interesting thing that's happening on Thursday. Thursday's the big day. And as you heard us talk about before, we're actually ahead of the news at this point. We're actually looking back over our shoulder as we advance ahead and looking back to see other people catching up on us. Way in the background is the Daily Courier, but coming up on Thursday will be that's the 10th, and that's when Simon Hare will be back in town. And the commissioners, especially Keith Heck, are really not up for making any decisions without him. One, it should include him. That's not stopped them in the past. But two, Keith, you can see it on the tape. He can't make up his mind without Simon there, because Simon's the one that says, well, this is, okay, this is not okay. He's not always right. And Keith just can't, their brains are missing. And so they got to wait till Simon is back. So, and they won't be having any general discussions with the quorum through the end of the month, because everybody's got to go for a well-deserved vacation, because after all that hard work in economic development, they need to catch their breaths. Okay, So a couple things. See if any of these stories sound familiar to you. I need to look over my shoulder, not to be rude to you. Okay, first thing up on Thursday, legal counsel. Wednesday is mostly a kind of a blathery day where they're just going to ceremoniously fill things in, because Simon's not there and has had very little impact on what those decisions are going to be, so they don't do much. He'll be back on Thursday. First thing, legal counsel. In the matter of renewal of the franchise with the cable TV guys. Sound a little familiar? We've done this story, remember?
Mm-hmm.
What they're going to do and what they're not going to do. Okay. Next is a grant agreement with Options of Southern Oregon for management and administration of mental health services. Besides the fact that they can use them. Remember, we just did that story. What was it, yesterday? Or was it the day
it seemed
before?
Like yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
We were talking about Yeah, we talked about them yesterday. I just wonder if that comes as a I mean, are we just basically the agency that it comes through on the way from the state? Because typically, like in California, where I moved from, mental health services are all dealt with by the state. So I wonder, is this funding, is that something that comes out of the general fund, or how does that work? Do you know?
The payroll used to come out of the general fund, but now it's this Options of Southern Oregon or Options for Southern Oregon, I think they call it. They get their own money, but the county still oversees some of their meetings. Now, I went to one of their meetings one time. Even I was wilting during this discussion, and it was one of those blah, 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 blah things. Everyone's patting each other on the back, and it was like, oh. And it lasted for, I think it was 2 hours. I can't take it. Even I can't take that. So I don't go.
Well, you just told them how to get rid of you every time.
Yes.
Now they'll just have all the meetings will be 2 hours of blather, and
yes,
that'll take care of Dale.
Well, how will we know the difference, Mike?
Well,
yeah, right. Okay. All right. So that's and if you weren't here yesterday because maybe you were gallivanting around having some kind of vacation or something while we were working our typing fingers to the bone. Look, we're barely hanging on with our fingernails. We were talking about how we got to where we are right now with unions, since yesterday was Labor Day, and the truth behind what Simon Harris says. Well, they've cut back on the employees. Yeah, that happened before you took office, Simon. And then how Kent Granite was involved in all that and made some threats to the unions. And not only did he lose his job, but the ERB, Employee Relations Board, got all over the county. It cost us, I think, about $1 million and a whole bunch of, I mean, we're just getting over that now. It wasn't very smart to threaten those guys, but that's what they did, and they got in a bunch of trouble because it's against federal law. Okay, then
so it was options, and then what?
Well, now it's still options. So
but what I'm saying is, you were talking about the weekly business session. You said, options.
Not much happening at tomorrow's weekly business session. Not much happening there. On Thursday, which is what we're talking about, and Simon is back, they're going to be talking, one of the things is about the options agreement. Then here's the big one. First thing after the finance report, they're going to be having a fire standards ordinance discussion. This is really, I've got 3 phone calls about this. What's going on with it? Okay. There are 3 main fire service sales offices. Okay, because if you live in the county, you can sign a subscription and have somebody arrange to come out and put out your fires. One can only hope at your house or at your building or whatever, and you sign a subscription deal. And there are some big guys in town, and then a little guy. The little guy was based in Merlin, and their name used to be Inland Fire. I went down and talked with them, and they were a little strange at the time. I mean, pretty strange. I thought I was getting very strange feedback from them, and it was hard to. It reminded me of currently of something like talking with Manor Development. It was like, they're not all there. I'm not quite understanding what they're saying. They're probably princely fellows, but I was not getting that feedback from them. Now they've changed their name to County Fire Service, I think, which makes it sort of sound like they're the county, which they're not. Okay, that's just a small thing to wrinkle your brow about a little bit. Okay, so coming in to see the county commissioners when Simon was not there, some fire relations board, fire something board fellows that are made up of the other companies, and they've invited county to join them, and county doesn't really want to or can't or won't or something. Anyway, so they've come up with some ideas about raising the standards. The standards need to be raised. Do they really? Well, they're convinced that they need to be raised. And during this meeting, they were talking about, and this one company doesn't want to do it, and this one company may not be able to. And Wally Hicks is saying, yeah, well, you know, there's one company that might object to this because it might make that one company look like we're trying to push them out of business. Everybody's talking about the one company. I'm thinking, they're not mentioning their name. That seems odd. Whenever there's something that seems odd, look into it. So I tried to talk to Wally about it, but oddly, he got out of there as quickly as he could. Well, he probably had, you know, he wasn't headed toward the restroom, so it was some other kind of emergency. So, so I talked with one of the fellows after the meeting. I said, I heard you mention the other company several times. Are we talking about county? Well, yeah. I said, do you feel that they are bad actors in all this and that there's something wrong with their ability to maintain these standards and that's why the standards need to be raised? Well, you know, there are many bad actors in this life. Oh, brother. So I thought, okay. I said, we're talking about county, aren't we? Well, yes. Okay, so now the question is, will people have their possibilities narrowed by this decision by the real county, the county government, because you need to have high standards or nobody's going to be safe? They're living up to standards, but not high enough. Their prices are lower than the others, and there's a reason for that because they're no good. Their prices are lower than others. There's a reason for that because they're so efficient. I don't know. And they're not doing a lot of talking about it. They don't even want to mention their name.
Well, I got to tell you, I've had experience with it. I live in the county, so I have to pay a subscription fee to a fire service, and if I want to have insurance on my home, which I do, and there has been rural metro, and they're the big guys in town. And listen, most of the insurance places will insist upon you having rural metro, or at least the ones that I've dealt with will insist upon them and not let you have these other ones. And which, you know, I didn't have a problem with, except for the fact that rural metro has this bizarre thing. At least they did when I first got here. They've been changing their standard a little bit since then. But when I first got here, they wanted to charge you based on the square footage of your house and its assessed value.
Oh.
And it's like, well, wait a minute. Some guy is sitting over here in a bundle of sticks, you know, freaking fire trap, and I'm on my property that's just recently been built and, you know, fireproof siding and all that kind of stuff. And yet he pays, you know, $300 a year and I have to pay $1,500 or something, you know, crazy. So I don't agree with that method of establishing a rate from somebody. And the interesting thing about these rural fire services is that whoever arrives at your house first is the one who puts out the fire, generally speaking. And if one of these other people comes, I guess they have an arrangement for payment amongst each other, but I mean, it's kind of an odd arrangement where, you know, they all react and whoever happens to be closer first is the one that comes there. And it may well be that you end up with ODF coming to put
it's interesting. It reminds me of the stories you hear about New York City in the 1800s, where they would have these various little groups of people and they would get together. They would all come at the same time to put out a fire, and they might get into a fist fight because whoever got there first is supposed to get the chance to put out your fire.
Right. Yeah, it's weird.
They would arrive with sometimes with horses, and sometimes they were just pulling the wagons with individual guys, and they were carrying buckets of water.
Yeah.
That's not going to help you today, obviously. And then one more thing, they're going to talk about an executive session, and they may come out and make some kind of decision after their executive session. They don't usually do that on a Thursday, but see, Simon, they want Simon there. There's a good reason and a bad reason. The good reason is, hey, let's include him. That's not always what they want him. And the other reason is because he's the only one sometimes that knows what the heck he's talking about. How does that confident does that make you feel? Now they're going to be talking about Senate Bill 838. Yes, just like the song, we all know what that means, but we don't. And that's also something we've been covering lately, and that is this this decision that we made here, Senate Bill 838. Well, there's a connection to a local vote that we had, and that is about banning GMO growing in our county.
Mm-hmm.
They say one of 9 counties. Well, there's a couple that's out in Illinois Valley, I believe, that grow, I've been told, I've talked with the wife, they grow sugar beets, and they're genetically modified, probably very similar to the stuff that goes into this, although this purports to be real sugar. Right, whatever that means these days.
Well, you can make real sugar from genetically modified sugar beets.
That's right.
It's not real sugar.
Well, it doesn't say cane sugar, does it? And I'll tell you, if you want cane, Coca-Cola changed their formula. They changed they're just colored sugar water, but they changed their formula from sugar cane to sugar beets, and it tastes different. I tell you, it tastes different. That's why I switched over from Coca-Cola. So, but if you go to the Caribbean or if you go to Mexico, you can get Coca-Cola if you really insisted on it. I'm not that much of a connoisseur, but you can get Coca-Cola for about $1 a bottle, the regular Coke-looking bottle, and it's made with sugar cane. It really tastes different. Of course, there's people who wouldn't be able to tell the difference between milk and industrial strength Drano, but this stuff tastes a little different. And it tastes different because it's in a can also. So they're going to be talking about this lawsuit against the county that's brought by this couple up in
but the Senate Bill 838, what does that have to do with?
I'm sorry, I've just run aground on this. So I'll just tell you that they're going to be talking about this lawsuit.
Okay.
So okay, now
I just thought maybe they were working on something for GMO statewide, and I
believe that to be the case. I always try to have all but just as I was saying that to you, I realized that little detail flew out of my head. This kind of thing happens. I do try to be a source of information, but then occasionally I hand it over to Mike. Mike, tell us all about it. No.
Right. And so how do you like being asked those kind of questions?
Yes, really.
You like that, don't you?
Yes, I sure do. Yes, I sure do. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm not going to argue. We could, and it would make an entertaining show. Look, over my shoulder here is something else. What is this thing? This is Rue 26. Looks like ROUX. Okay, but the French, they can't pronounce things right, and they call it. They would call it Rue 69 or something like that. No, that doesn't make any sense. That's not 29. But anyway, this is Rue 26. The fellow that owns Rue 26 is John Bowen. Does that name sound familiar to anybody? John Bowen.
Yeah. Isn't he the guy? Doesn't he have Jimmy's also?
He does,
and he's also the guy who has the put the whole Live Rogue thing on for the city. Did their whole advertising campaign. Well, gee whiz, I would assume that he got a big paycheck out of that. How come his restaurant is closing?
That's rather ironic. Not that you would wish anybody ill will. But yes, his restaurant is closing. I just find it ironic that one of the things he does is advise the city council, the Grants Pass City Council, about how to retain businesses, about how to build up economic development, about how to prosper in our area, and then his restaurant's going out of business.
Yeah. It's not exactly a recommendation.
Not exactly. And the other thing that you might know about Rue 26, besides the French name, it's so French, is that most of the movers and shakers in town, the people of wealth and means, this is where the elite used to meet to eat. They would talk about going to, oh, yes, I went to Route 26 and the wine list is, okay, isn't it lovely to have that much money that you care about the wine list? Now, where are they going to meet? Jimmy's?
Well, yeah, his is not the only restaurant in town. I mean, that's the one thing that I noticed when I first moved here. There's a lot of restaurants, and they could go down to the 115 Broiler or something like that.
Yes,
or,
I've heard that's the place.
Yeah, there's a number of classy places in town.
Or if you can stand Cantonese food when you're used to Szechuan. Okay, is there a difference? It's all Chinese. Yes. There's a difference. There's a big difference, buddy. But anyway, so yeah, John Bowen's place going out of business. It just abruptly happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is
there's
a little
backstory there somewhere.
Yes. Well, it sure happened quickly, though. I mean, boom, it's over. So here's one more that I think that Mike's going to find also rather ironic. Let me call this up, and I will make it full screen. And I tried to make it big enough so that you can read. This is an advertisement that was in the Daily Courier today. And it says, Josephine County Sheriff's Volunteer Unit. And it's got this big explosion thing. Patrols are back. They are? So if you're interested, you could go to the Merlin substation. That's the one where the people in the area kept it open out of their own pocket, because the county didn't want to spend $6,000, right? They could easily spend that on a Simon Hare trip, but not in keeping a substation open. Or you could go to the Cave Junction substation. Okay, so volunteers, they're accepting applications for membership. That doesn't exactly match with what the sheriff said to us, but
well, I'm happy to see that they're doing it, because I think volunteers have something to offer, and volunteers, if people know that there is a deterrent in the area, they will avoid doing stuff. Listen, we know that there's a correlation between armed people in an area and the crime rates in those areas drop when they know that some of the homeowners may have a gun in the house. And some of our highest crime rate cities have the largest gun control list of legislation. So, I think that if they are, whoops, oh, my microphone almost died here. If they are engaging with the public and having them participating with the sheriff's department, patrolling their area, I think that's a good thing.
There was something, I only got a glance at it when I was at the supermarket and happened to see, not Hagen, and happened to see the front page, but there was something about, in the Courier about a man with gun shakes up Cave Junction, I think it was. Really? No, Merlin. That's what it was. Man with gun shakes up Merlin. Man with gun? Really? In our area, a man with a gun?
Yes.
Okay, I realize that they have to write short titles, but really? Oh, a man has a gun! Quick! Really? Okay. And
yeah, it doesn't exactly describe. Yeah, I'm sure a guy, did something or whatever.
Maybe man threatens people with gun, oh, well, that's too much. We don't have enough room for such a thing. You can't fit the word permanent in there because it's, yeah, whatever. But yeah, it just seemed like it's the kind of headline that you might see in Portland. Man has gun, everybody quick, evacuate the whole county. Okay. Yes. Okay, so Mike went out with Vika Nikodian on last first Friday, and talked to some people on the street and in stores. We're going to play back for you the interviews that were in the stores, and then tomorrow our plan is to play back the interviews with people that were on the street. And man, they talked to him until there wasn't any light left. And the last one you look at is, what kind of guy is that? Is that a guy? Because it was dark. But
yeah, it went pretty fast, actually.
It sure did, yeah. So they ended up talking with a couple of people that were in stores. And Mike, do you recall the name of the first guy? He was the guy that has that jewelry shop. What's that fella's name?
It's Mark something or other. I can't remember.
I'm sorry,
can't remember his
Mike,
last name now. I will get it for you.
I hate sandbagging him.
By the end of this interview, you will have his name. Okay,
all right. So he answers Mike's questions about what do you think about a grants pass sales tax. He's got a lot to say. Let's have him say to say here. Go ahead.
How is the proposed sales tax, this proposed city sales tax, how is that going to affect your business?
Well, on the retail side, it'll affect the jewelry sales. There'll be a 2% tax on the jewelry. I'm not so concerned about myself. What I'm concerned about is the activity that's in downtown Grants Pass, basically. That's what I'm concerned with. I rely a lot on foot traffic. Most of my business is based on buying, so my impact is not, it's not a huge impact actually on my business. But if we start losing businesses in the downtown area, which I've been talking to people who are already on the verge, they don't do as much volume as we do, and they're already on the verge thinking about closing down. And this is one of the things that's never considered when people pass a new tax. People who are on the verge of thinking about closing their business down when there's a new law passed that's against them, because it is, any tax is against the person that's being taxed, whether you receive a benefit ultimately or not. And so a lot of people, I think, that are on the borderline, they're thinking about staying open for another 6 months or another year, maybe 2 years, and then throwing in the towel. They'll just go ahead and throw in the towel. And I've had several people tell me that already. And so my concern with my shop is the less traffic, the more the downtown looks like a ghost town.
Broken window effect.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really, really bad. I think people don't understand. This hasn't really been done with a general sales tax in a city right next to another city that doesn't have one. And they did admit, you know, in the meeting that it was arbitrary that Medford's 25 minutes away, that they haven't really done the research. They can't really compare it. They compared the income of this city to cities in Washington State, which I don't think you can do effectively. And they also use census data, and census data includes online retail sales. And if you do that, you're not really getting a picture of what the volume is going to be like and what you're going to get. And there's no inclusion in the data of the businesses that are going to close and that lack of income. So there's a lot of things that have not been considered. We're not in a fish bowl. People can get outside of the bowl and go shop. Right. And Grants Pass is in very unique situations where Ashland was 20 years ago. And I'm not advocating a mills tax, but they passed the mills tax instead of a general sales tax because they have the Shakespeare crowd and they're stuck there. They're not going to drive to Medford to go eat, okay, because they're on tour in Ashland. And they knew that, so they stuck it to the tourists. I don't think it'd work in Grants Pass because a lot of these restaurants, first of all, they're not packed when I see them, when I frequent them. And second of all, they rely a lot on the local people. And so that would not fit here, and the voters have already rejected that as well, seeing for what it was, being unfair. So the general sales tax hasn't been tried. It's been presented, but it's never been tried next to a larger city. And so when you have the percentage of people here in Grants Pass, they're going into Medford and they're shopping already. If they come in the shop, I mean, I had a guy come in today, for example, and he got a price on something. He said it was a $1,000 item. He said it was $20 more than what he pays, you know, wherever else he buys it. Mm-hmm. And he walked out. Okay. So if that's exactly what the sales tax is on $1,000 is $20. And for $20, he said he needed to think about it. Well, he never came back. He came in, what time was that, Jacob? 10 o'clock, 10:30? Right. So he didn't come back. $20, not coming back. Okay. So there's a live example of the impact that it's going to have. On a wedding set, someone comes in, $1,200 wedding set, it's an extra $20. they may say, hey, you know what, we're going to Medford anyway next week. Let's go check it out over there. That little thought, and it's also human psychology. When you ring up an item and the item costs more than what they were actually looking at, and psychologically the person is not prepared to pay that because they're not used to it, it stops them. And they feel like they've been defrauded.
I'm from California, so I know all about that. When I first moved up here, I was blown away that, hey, that's exactly what the price tag says.
Exactly. It blows you away, and you get used to it, you know, and most of the people here have been here for a while, you know, and I've been here since the early 90s. And so
I suppose that it probably would do wonders for a burgeoning commercial district in Merlin if one were to take off up there, but
well, most people are actually looking at Rogue River. Yeah, it's just right down the street. And I've talked to several people who are looking at Rogue River. I don't know how that's going to work out, you know, if people, because this is where the population is for Josephine County, and the next largest population base is Medford. So I don't know how well that strategy is going to work out, you know, going into Rogue River, but that's what people are saying. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. What I think is going to happen is people who are already borderline on what they're going to do, if they're thinking about closing, they're just going to go ahead and do it. That's what I'm thinking. And then what we'll be back where we were 4 years ago when the downtown looked a little bit like a ghost town. Remember that?
No.
Yeah, we'll be back there, and that won't be good for anybody. I'm in a business, even though most of my volume is buying, I need competitors around me. I need a place for the customers to come, bounce their prices off each other. And the same thing with the jewelry. People need to come down here. They need 3 jewelry stores. They need to be able to look at all of them and then make a selection and not feel like they need to travel around. And I think 3 is a really good number. If you get down to 1, I don't think that's good for the single person who's left. It seems like it might be good, but economically speaking, when you look at it from the textbook perspective, it's not good. And that's what I'm concerned about with the sales tax, is the fact that we're not in a ball where people have a choice and they already go to Medford. So what's going to stop them from picking up all their goods when they're there? And I'm not sure what's going to happen with Walmart. Have you heard anything? Is Walmart going to be 2% more?
I don't know. I would suspect that they would have to be. I mean, it's you know, anything non-food item or something, isn't it?
Right. So if you're going to go on your weekly trip and you're thinking about going to Costco, go to Walmart as well, and Medford might be happening as well. So that's another thing. There's a lot of stuff here that hasn't really been worked out, and it's kind of an experiment.
Well, let me ask you, if they do pass it and you do stay here, how do you feel about the 5% compensation for being an you know, an unpaid tax collector, except for that 5%? What do you feel about the 5% compensation to be a tax collector?
I don't, you know, it's not going to cover the costs of doing it. I mean, I have no idea. I've never, I came to Oregon to open a business because there was no sales tax, because that's less paperwork for the people that I sell to and for myself. And so we're a diamond brokerage mostly. We deal in coins and jewelry, but we do mostly diamonds. And it makes things 10 times easier when someone comes in the door. You fill out the receipt, you don't have to worry about the sales tax. But we can, with the diamonds, we have the Ashland shop. And so if people really have a problem, they can do the shopping over there. We can send them that way. I don't know if they're going to go to Ashland for $20, you know, but like I say, I had a guy walk out today for $20. You know, and that, of course, the sales tax isn't active. It's just the cost here was $20 more than he thought it was somewhere else. I don't think it is. I think when he goes there, he's going to see it's the same. But it's the fact that
he's already shopped here. Now he's there.
Exactly, because we before we priced our goods, we called around to make sure we're the exact or cheaper. So he may have been bluffing or whatever, but the fact of the matter is, when he goes over there and finds it, he's now going to buy it over there. And that, I'm afraid that's what's going to happen with the 2%. People are going to come in and they're going to say, well, we know automatically it's 2% more. Why don't we see if they have this item somewhere else? And so it's not going to benefit us. You know, and I understand the situation that they're in with, they need funds for law enforcement, but most cities, if you look at these levies, law enforcement is already funded. You're supposed to fund them first, and then you're supposed to pass these types of things for sewers and improvements on the infrastructure. That's what Ashland did, I believe. Wasn't it the sewer treatment plant was the Mills tax? Do you remember? Yeah, and I think that was the same thing in Yachats. And so we're actually they're asking for a sales tax for something that government's supposed to already be doing and already paying for, and other things are supposed to have a shortfall, not the police department.
Mm. I do know that there is a somewhere between $80 and $100 million water treatment plant project that needs to be funded in the next few years here in Grand.
So you'll see another levy for that as well.
You probably will.
And then there's also talk at the state level of analyzing the counties and seeing if they have enough of a levy for law enforcement, or the ones that are short for law enforcement, not enough funding, doing something at the state level. And now you have a ballot measure that's going to be voted on by Portlandia, and that's going to pass. Anything that's a tax will pass in Portland.
Nice. Yes. And that was Mark Hutto from J. Austin Fine Jewelers there on 6th Street in Grants Pass.
He mentioned something about maybe this won't work. You talk with the mayor out on the street on this same day. And what did the mayor tell you? If things don't quite work out right, if they're sure that this just isn't working, what did the mayor say about the time lapse between coming to the conclusion that's absolutely not working and then doing something about it?
Well, I said if half the people on this street are packing up their shop and moving out after 6 months, what will you do? And he said, well, I think we'll leave it in place for a year or maybe 2. So that would be 18 months past the point where it became clear that, I mean, because that's the question I asked, is if it's clear this thing isn't working out and is killing business, what will you do? Oh, well, we'll leave it in place for another couple of years.
Wow. But half of the company's moving out. That's a disaster.
Yes, of course. But, maybe he didn't hear it that way or whatever. But I just thought, wow, that's a kind of an odd reaction for that situation there.
He didn't hear it that way. Look, you're a guy with a microphone.
Yes.
And you have a camera pointed at the mayor, and you're asking him a tough question about something that is very controversial, and maybe he doesn't understand that it's a real question and he needs to be careful about what he says. I think you're being too easy on him, Mike.
Yeah, it may be, listen, and that is the point. This is serious business. Yes. And it is serious for these businesses here, and it could mean life or death for them. Because, see, everybody thinks if you own a business that you're swimming in liquid cash. No. Listen, I remember starting out as a general contractor in California, and a number of weeks making less than the people who worked for me did. And they didn't have to stay up at night worrying about, the job and making everything happen and making the phone calls after you get home and getting, 4 hours of sleep and getting up and doing the whole thing over again the next morning. Your employees don't have to do that. All they have to do is show up between, 8 and 4 and, they're done. And so after you do that for a little while, you learn about business and you don't make stupid mistakes. But the point is that the margin for these people is probably pretty thin, and they're going to be okay as long as they're in this department. But if a third of their customers decide to go shop somewhere else because it may be cheaper because there's a sales tax or no sales tax, that's the difference that could wipe that business out.
Just so that you guys know, 7 days a week, I get up somewhere around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, trundle out here to this spot, set up the next clip for chunking away so it can look better and sound better, and then go back to bed. Okay, so, and that's why I get paid the big bucks.
Right. Yes. The margin on Dale's operation is, I mean, that's pretty thin. Dale's trying to make it up on volume. And
well, if you just
he has a 20-year plan.
Volume up a little bit.
Yes, he has a 20-year plan to make a profit ultimately. At the end
of that. Brother. Okay.
Now, in this next piece, hang on a second. In this next piece, this is the guy that owns the kitchen store down there, and my questions are kind of crappy, but because you know, I had just got done talking to this guy at J. Austin who, you know, all I did was say go, and he just went, and I went over to this guy, and you know, he didn't have as much to say, so I found myself going, wow, I'm going to have to ask this guy a question. But I made a mistake in the question that I asked him, and I at one point I said it's a 2% on everything except prepared food, which is true. But I said unprepared food, which is not right. Unprepared is the untaxed part. The prepared food is the taxed food. So
what's this fellow's name?
This guy's name is Frank.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. And now, everyone, here's Frank. Frank.
Yes.
Okay, frankly speaking, here we go.
The city has proposed a 2% sales tax that will be on the ballot in November. That should apply to basically all goods except prepared foods, as I have heard. How is this going to affect your business?
Well, I am afraid it's going to be devastating to my business. It would make me the only store of my type in the entire state where an exact item would cost more, because there is no sales tax anywhere else in the state. And I just think that people, when they found out about it, would want to buy elsewhere.
Now, do you remember what your pitch was to the city council? Well, you got 3 minutes to do that, and you can take as long as you want if you like.
Well, the city council was saying that they thought that it was 1.75% at the time. Now it's 2%, so it's already gone up. That they thought that that would not be enough to make people from Grants Pass drive to Medford and Ashland to shop. But they forgot about the flip side of that, and that is I rely heavily on not only local people, but people from other areas. I could not survive just on the small population of customers I get from Josephine County. I have to have tourists. And it's hard enough to get people to drive up from Medford and Ashland to Grants Pass to shop, but if they had to drive and pay more, I really think that this would seriously, hurt my business.
Understood. So do you know other business owners in this area that are on the edge of making it or cashing in their chips? Or
I do. I'm hoping that if it passes, we might be able to survive it. I know that there are a number of businesses who are barely making it now, and I think if this passes, they will just go out of business. And I don't see that new businesses are going to be attracted to Grants Pass, because why would somebody want to open a new business when they're handicapped from the get-go?
Right. And then, so also there's a psychological effect that takes place when there's a bunch of empty buildings with for lease signs in the window, and that may well have an effect on your business as well, when you think.
Absolutely. If a third of the spaces are available downtown, it's not going to attract tourists or locals.
So if this did pass and they returned to us or did not any longer charge for the public safety levy, would this benefit you in an equal way, or perhaps even more than what the sales tax is going to cost you in business?
Well, I don't live in the city. I live in the county, and I realize that law enforcement does need more funds. I just don't think that this is the way to do it. But the city council is trying to appeal to city voters and to make it as enticing as they can by offering to lower other taxes, city taxes, basically so that everybody has to pay the tax. It will be advantageous to certain city residents, but not to everybody else in the world.
So do you think that maybe some people will be doing the math on whether or not they're, how much money they're going to be saving on property taxes, and perhaps basing their vote on that and not necessarily taking into account what it may do to the vitality of the downtown?
That's exactly right. I think some people will sort of look at the short-sighted thing and maybe vote yes, thinking that they're going to save some money on their property taxes, but they're not going to realize that within a few years, the whole nature of downtown might change. There might be half empty storefronts, and I think in the long run, it is just not a good thing.
Understood. Okay. Anything else any other point you want to make?
No, it's just that I hope that this does not pass. We have even sort of discussed moving our business out of this city because I feel it will put me at such a great disadvantage that at a certain point I have to decide whether or not I want to do business here. And I would hate to close my store. I have a big investment in this. I've tried to create a really nice place for people to shop, and now I feel like City Hall has thrown me under the bus.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting how, it doesn't take, a whole lot of, rocket science to figure out that this is a pretty clever thing that they've done here with the sales tax, where they've incentivized people to vote a certain way by saying, hey, we're going to, eliminate this levy on your property tax, and we're going to take it and stick it over on this guy. Well, generally speaking, in this world, we don't care what happens to that guy over there. We're concerned about the impact to ourselves. And, and you're taking it off a larger number of people and putting it on a smaller number of people. And who knows what'll happen by that. I hope that people will be a little bit, a little bit more future seeing than that. But you never know.
What is the potential impact of a couple of dozen stores closing down in downtown Gratz Pass?
Well, and it's not.
Ask John Bowen.
Yes, you could. You could ask him. And also, listen, it's not like we haven't experienced that in the recent past. And it looks a whole lot better now than it did. There has been, you drive through, it's kind of hard to miss, empty stores and for lease signs, and there's less of that now than there was a couple of years ago. And I think that's a good thing. Why should we kill the golden goose here when it's just, it's just recovering from a broken leg?
Well, one of the things that we probably can see is that we're just now starting to come out of that pit. It seems to me, just my opinion, that it's a little early. And we're just now climbing out by using our fingernails, right, to climb out of that hole. And now it's like with the county. Hey, we're hanging on by our fingernails, but let's hire a bunch of people. Really? Can you just give it a breather? Just maybe take a couple of breaths before you do it. Maybe each breath lasts about a year. Do you really need to do this immediately?
Yeah, what's wrong with having a couple of dollars, that stays in your checking account?
Well, Cheryl Walker made that very clear to everybody. There's nothing about you putting extra money in your pocket that benefits the county government, because you're not paying it into the county government. She really thinks that prosperous people in the area is not going to, it won't immediately put money into the county bank account, so it's worthless. Really? More prosperous people? It's like saying more healthy people is not necessarily good for the county. We've seen that example, and you guys remember this because you saw it. Oh, good news. Our infant mortality rate is up, so we're going to get more money. Really? That's good news? Well, she didn't apologize either. Keith Eck was like, oh, no, says Cheryl. No, this is good news. Really?
Yeah,
they're
government
addicted.
thinks differently. Yes, they're addicted to free money.
Brother, it's a little too early, right? It's just a little too early. She's 14 years old. That's too early. You wait another 4 years, okay, at least. And that's too early, too.
Wow. Okay.